Thank you so much, Speaker. This government, just like the last one, has been trying to get into e-gaming. The Minister of Finance, of course, has said the online casino is not about making money for the province. Another thing it would have in common with the first e-gaming fiasco, because that cost the government at least $1.5 million. A question to the Minister of Finance. Would you still move ahead with an online casino if it was not profitable for Prince Edward Island?
The Honourable Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, I'd like to clarify, this is not e-gaming. That was the previous government. It was something that was offshore that we had no idea what the details were about. We knew nothing about it until it broke in the news. This is about the Atlantic Lottery Corporation, a Crown corporation owned by the 4 provincial provinces. Honourable Member, this is not e-gaming in no way, shape or form. And I have said already in this House that we are doing it to give Islanders a safer, more responsible way of gambling online.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thanks, Speaker. Last week, the same Minister of Finance made a commitment in this House that all proceeds from the new online casino would be dedicated to supports for mental health and addiction services. We know that online gambling poses particular threats for problem gamblers, and evidence suggests that since COVID hit, more gamblers than ever have moved online to play. As I said at the time, that feels a little bit like government knowing there's a fire and choosing to pour gasoline on it, and then promising to give firefighters a little bit extra money to try and put it out. That does not strike me as ethical or responsible governance. To the same minister, estimates for profits that will flow from an online casino vary, but once established, it will no doubt be in excess of $1 million a year. Does this mean that government funding for mental health and addiction services will also increase itself by that amount each year?
The Honourable Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First of all, Honourable Member, I'd like to point out to you that we have not flipped the switch on this. We did have a meeting. We wanted to discuss it in Cabinet and to be open and transparent about how we move forward with this. We are looking at doing this. We are not alone in Atlantic Canada to do this. Honourable Member, the proceeds that we do receive from the profits we receive from online gaming will go into mental health and addictions. Honourable Member, I've discussed it with the Department of Health to look at ways and programs that we need to put in place, but let's not forget that this has been accessible to Canadians. 90% of Canadians now have access to this in a responsible, more responsible way. Honourable Member, we want to do this in a responsible way, and I will add on top of that, there has been no record of any increase in online gambling, and this has been going on, started 10 years ago. That is exactly what was told to us and was said by the person that came to committee. There is no marked increase in online gaming because of online regulated sites in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
So we're going to get to that particular question a little bit further in the series. So far I've asked 2 questions, and so far the Minister has evaded answering either of them. The argument that this government...
Asked them all last week.
The argument that this government has repeatedly put forward to justify throwing gasoline on the online gambling fire is that people are already... Do I have the floor, Speaker?
Yes.
People are already doing this on unregulated illegal sites, and that, as the Minister puts it, offering this service in a more regulated platform will repatriate those funds lost to unregulated sites. To the same Minister, despite the comment that you've just made, many other provinces have established online casinos, and they obviously operate in the same environment, competing with unregulated illegal players. What evidence exists to support the claim that you just made that the money gamblers spend on unregulated illegal sites has been recaptured in these provinces with their regulated government sites?
The Honourable Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier.
Honourable Member.
Evidence. Does she have the floor?
Yes. Thank you.
You're indignant.
I have said over and over again that this is going to be done in a responsible, regulated way. It's not e-gaming. I know you're trying to make headlines over there. This is not e-gaming. It has nothing to do with e-gaming. This is an online regulated platform that right now 90% of Canadians can access in a safer environment to gamble online. And I'll also point out that less than 2% of Prince Edward Islanders have a problem with gambling, and we have the supports there for them. And I have also pointed out that it tends to be a dependency with whether it's alcohol or drugs. So we want to ensure that the funds are there. And yes, I did say, honourable member, before, that the profits we receive through online gaming will go into mental health and addictions. I did say that when I answered the last question. I will continue to stand on that. That is additional funding, honourable member. We have nothing in the operating budget in this coming year that will be revenue from online gambling. There is no day that we're going to flip the switch on this, and there is absolutely no anticipation of having revenues from that within this next fiscal year. Thank you.
Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thanks, Speaker. I'm not trying to make headlines here. I'm trying to make sense of the numerous. I'm trying to make sense of the numerous contradictions coming from this minister over the last few months. Last night on Compass, Professor David Hodgins.
Go ahead, member.
Thank you, Speaker. Last night on Compass, Professor David Hodgins, who presented here in this room for the Standing Committee from the University of Calgary, discussed this issue with host Louise Martin. He provided evidence that while gambling overall has gone down since the pandemic hit, the subset of people who gamble online has actually increased. We know that there is an association between people being involved in online gambling and problem gambling. Dr. Hodgins also went on to say that creating new platforms locally, and this is critical, will actually expand the market. In other words, not capture those people who are already gambling online using illegal sites, but lure islanders to play who would otherwise not do so. A question to the minister: do you refute this evidence from an expert, or do you concede that eGaming 2.0 will actually create new potentially problem gamblers, particularly when you introduce it during a pandemic?
The Honourable Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to point out to the honourable member that through online gambling with Atlantic Lottery, it is a regulated site. There are time limits. There are maximum bets. Your age is verified, your identity is verified, there are responsible gaming supports as well. So, honourable member, there will be another way for islanders to gamble. I will be the first one to admit that. But right now, you can go on your computer and see how many sites you can bring up within seconds where you can go and gamble offshore in an unregulated way with no regulations, no verification of who you are or if you're a legal age. Honourable member, we are doing this for the protection of islands, not the exploitation, and this is not gaming in any way, shape or form. And honourable member, if you are not happy with the millions and millions of dollars that we receive in this province from Atlantic Lottery Corporation every year, then maybe you can suggest where we can take those funds from, and if we're going to get rid of gambling. You cannot bury your head in the sand. We regulate liquor, we regulate tobacco, we regulate cannabis. Now we're going to regulate gambling. It's as simple as that. Get rid of them all.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thanks, Speaker. In a letter to the President of Atlantic Lotteries Corporation dated April 29th last year and tabled in the House last week, the Minister wrote this, and I quote, I quote, "Our government..."
Members.
Minister wrote this: "Our government is fully focused on helping islanders weather a public health emergency. We are not interested in expanding access to gambling online at this time. I will contact you after the pandemic if we think it makes sense for PEI to join the other shareholders in offering new products." End quote. Question to the Minister.
He'll change his mind tomorrow.
Question to the Minister. Are we not still in a pandemic? Talk about change of mind. Why the change of heart?
Change your mind every day.
The Honourable Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And honourable member, I did not have a change of mind or a change of heart. I am not contradicting myself. At that point, Atlantic Lottery wanted all 4 provinces to be part of the online gambling rollout. And I said, we are not interested at this time, and we are not interested in the pandemic. After that, I did have a conversation with the other finance ministers, including the former finance minister for Nova Scotia. We discussed what this would look like and how we could move forward. And I said, we are not ready to flip the switch on this yet, but we will be open and transparent, bring it to Cabinet, have a discussion, and look at the options and what this would look like for Prince Edward Island. No change of heart, no change of mind. We're looking at it. It hasn't happened yet, Honourable Member, but from all the members across, you think that it was going on. You can go on ALC website right now. You cannot do those gambling games online right now. You can click on New Brunswick and you can see you're able to online gamble there. But if you click on as a Prince Edward Islander, you are not allowed to gamble. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Let's be clear that the discussion that was had in Cabinet and the decision made in Cabinet was in December last year, way before the references the Minister just made. In an email from a Department of Finance official also to the President of Atlantic Lotteries Corporation, the official wrote, and I quote, "Gaming priorities for Prince Edward Island have always been determined by the PEI Lotteries Commission, with the finance liaising with other departments and agencies to gather input and advance policies," unquote. A question to the same minister. If gaming priorities are set by the PEI Lotteries Commission, why did a FOIP request by our office of the Commission produce zero records, not a single record of the online casino?
Honourable Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Member, the discussion was had amongst the 4 finance ministers in an ALC meeting and ongoing meetings. I mean, we talked to each other. We were talking more than weekly at one point, and it did come up. That is where the discussion was had. I reached out to my Cabinet colleagues. I said, this is something that we should look at. We should see what parameters need to be put in place. I'm not there yet. I still am not there. But, Honourable Member, we are going to do what's right for Islanders. I've committed that any profits we have from online gambling will go back into mental health and addictions. Honourable Member, this is happening all over the world. It's happening in Canada, and 90% of Canadians have the opportunity now to go on a regulated site that is safer and has more verifications, and we want to give Prince Edward Islanders the same opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thanks, Speaker. Well, while the Lotteries Commission FOIP request produced no records, we were able to FOIP and get over 100 pages of records from the Department of Finance on the online casino. It's clear that government went outside the normal process to approve this online gaming initiative. Does that sound familiar to you? But perhaps the Minister can explain this to the House. Question to the Minister. Why did you go around the PEI Lotteries Commission, who, as we know from a letter from somebody in your own department, are the people who make the decisions on new gambling products? Why did you go around the PEI Lotteries Commission to push through this new e-gaming scheme?
The Honourable Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, we're not at a point yet where we're ready to push that button to turn it on. So this has been a conversation that we have had amongst the finance ministers within Atlantic Canada. We all have discussions regularly about ALC. Honourable Member, we are not there yet. I will tell you that over and over again, we are not there yet. We want to ensure that the regulations are what we want for Prince Edward Island, that the limits are what we want for Prince Edward Island, and I will continue to work with Atlantic Lottery Corporation to ensure that that happens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you. I just want to remind the Minister that there was an order in Council from December the 22nd, 2020, where this decision was actually made. Are you saying here today that decision was not made then? Or are you saying that decision was, I don't understand. Too many contradictions here, Minister. You made a decision behind closed doors in Cabinet and you were going to go ahead with this. Now you're saying that you're not going to press that button. But my goodness, you've had your finger on that switch for the last 6 months or more. What is going on here?
Honourable Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Member, we have not pressed that button. I brought it to Cabinet to have the discussion. Our orders in Council are made public. We want it to be open and transparent for Islanders to see that we are looking into doing this. It hasn't happened yet. We want to make sure, again, that we have the regulations in place, that we have the bet limits in place. We want to do what's right for Prince Edward Islanders. I will continue to stand by that statement. And, Honourable Member, again, I will say the profits will go back into mental health and addictions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
there.
Mr. Speaker.